Welcome to Mindful Live 119. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 15th of August. We're speeding ahead with the year. Thank you for being here as per usual. Tonight we're talking, unfortunately, killing. Murders. Trinidad is on fire lately, apparently. Now, 7 murders over the weekend. At least 7 murders over the weekend. That's a lot. Now, 7 murders over the weekend is the kind of thing you usually hear. Wow, 14 since Friday. Well, I was talking the direct weekend, but 14 since Friday. Jeez. It is insane. But when you look at that, that's the kind of numbers you see coming out of Chicago and Philadelphia and those really, really hot cities that they call the murder capitals of the United States, etc. But Chicago is like double our population and they barely have 7 murders over a weekend. One weekend, what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago? That is scary. Something that I regularly say, if you are in tune with enough of the live, something that I regularly say is that in many cases, many of the things that people complain about in Trinidad, I like to try and draw some context to it, contextualize it. And if you talk about our economic situation, if you talk about the prices of amenities, the prices of essential goods, etc., etc., yes, some of them are kind of bad, but on a global scale, Trinidad, nice when it comes to a lot of those things. You contextualize it, you get some perspective of those things, and you're like, Trinidad, not that bad in some of those things. But then, listen, on that murder front, Trinidad is legitimately scary. That is legitimately scary. Anywhere in the world, you're talking about 7 murders over a weekend, 14 since Friday. That is insane. That is insane. And when you're looking at how these murders are going on, you're getting the idea that these men are not afraid of being caught. And that seems to be the biggest thing to me. If they are not afraid of being caught, then they will only go worse and worse and worse. And it seems like they have a legitimate reason to not fear being caught because generally speaking, they are not caught. Murderers aren't caught very regularly in Trinidad. Some of these guys might be murdering since the last 15 years. They're experienced in this business. They're doing this and they have no fear. And I find Trinidad is just too small to have that amount of murders and get away with it. You sounding like them. I don't understand what that comment even means. Be very careful. They are the moderators in the chat and they work. Who is to blame? Well, I think there's a lot of blame to go around. If you're talking about blame, there's a lot of blame to go around. You could talk about the society, you could talk about parenting, etc., etc., etc. But as it is, yes, parents are supposed to raise their children well, and if they raise their children well, they will not go into a life of crime, etc., etc., etc. But we can't afford to be waiting on parents to raise their children well. That's not our business. As a regular citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, it's not my business how George parents raised him. They may have raised him badly, and that's not my business. If they did raise him badly, that's where the police are supposed to come in. The police are supposed to be able to come in there and make sure that George, who was raised badly by his parents, don't affect me. How come it's a certain race involved the most in crime? That's a lie. You're talking about a certain race involved or visibly involved in violent crime. And that has to do more with communities and cultures. But if you're talking about white collar crime, there's a different race that seems to shine in that area. So let's not get into the racial side of criminality. And you're sounding like you're going down a road, Mr. User Number, that would get you in trouble and would get you swiftly muted. Be very careful, tread carefully. We are not looking for vacuous talk inside of the chat. We're trying to build reasonable discussion. That's a mental slavery with all that race nonsense. Yes, it's unwise. Now, it's not totally foolish to try and understand certain realities there. It's not foolish to try and understand certain realities there. And I regularly speak about that. People in the live would know that it's a regular thing I bring up, even the racial aspect of some of this. And what I speak about in some of this is you have to understand that criminality isn't specific to a race. Now, criminality may have different cultures that they seem to latch on to more. And then according to your socioeconomic background, you may find that certain kind of criminality is within your reach. So if you are in a poor community, you cannot go out there and start up the top Ponzi scheme because you just don't have the money to do it. But if you are in a poor community, the criminality that is within your reach is violent crime. I could use my body violently to try and get something. So the socioeconomic background limits the kind of criminality that you end up in. Now, to speak about that on the background of what we're going to speak about here is really ironic, because when you look at the murders over the weekend, there isn't any race specific kind of thing going on there. So you will see that it isn't a race specific thing. And the more out of control Trinidad gets, you'd start to see that violence creep up throughout the society through even higher and higher socioeconomic groups. Brace for an increase with the scrap iron ban. I was saying that since last week. The nature of how the crime seems to be going, where few people are being caught, what you're going to see is more people do what they think they need to do to get ahead. So if I'm a businessman and I get into a grouse with you, you would say Trinidad is out of control. Criminality to some extent. If I'm a businessman and I have a grouse, I have some kind of disagreement with you. If I see that in Trinidad and Tobago, I could hire a killer to do my dirty work for me, and he's just going to take $5,000, and $5,000 gets my problem solved, well, I'll do it. I'll do it. There are many businessmen, if given the chance, they will murder someone. They don't do it usually because they will get caught. Here's the thing. What would someone do if they know they will get away with it? That is an amazing question to ask. And what you would tend to see is that if I'm a poor person from a poor background, I have nothing to lose, so I'm not even worried too much about getting away with it. So even if the police are doing their job, you will find still people at lower socioeconomic levels still commit crime. But when the police continue not doing their job, you start to see that pervade more through the society. You start to see that pervade more through the society because more and more people will recognize, well, I could do criminality and get away with it and get ahead through that method. And more people will do it. That's what you tend to see. Now, let's dive into some of the stories that we'll be covering this evening. And we're starting with a criminologist. Now, I've said this before, I am not denying anyone's expertise, and I'm sure people have their areas of study and they are experts at that. But oftentimes when I hear some criminologists talk, I think some criminologists sometimes, you're hearing the words I'm using, conditional words, qualifiers out here. Some criminologists sometimes sound like they're speaking from a bubble without fully understanding some things. All right. Criminologist, murder rate out of control. With more than 340 murders recorded for the year thus far. Let's read that again. With more than 340 murders recorded for the year thus far, one criminologist is concerned that the murder rate is out of control, is now out of control. Dr. Wendell Wallace said statistics show that there were fewer murders recorded for the same period last year. At that time, the murder rate was 227. Now, just to bear in mind that 227 is a very high murder rate on its own. That's what I'm reading now, Mr. Troy Scott. That's what I'm reading now. 277 is by all means way too high. And to consider that we may be longing for, we may be pining for and wishing for that 277 number. That is scary. 340 murders at least. At least. Now, the thing is, what you tend to recognize is that in the counting of some of those numbers, very regularly, some are missed. Some are missed. Very often you see that. You'd hear about a murder here or there, and it's not counted in the official numbers. So at least 340. So we could kind of guesstimate that it would be some number above that. In all jurisdictions in the world, we have crimes. And at some point in time, we must take that distinction and that determination that crime is out of control. And more likely than not, people base that on murder statistics. And at this point in time, for my good self, I think that the murders especially out of control. I agree with him. I agree with him. The murders seem obviously out of control. Now, to me, I point fingers directly at the police service. Now, the police service might not like that, but I point fingers directly at them. If it is that the political directorate above the police service is impeding them from doing their duty, then they need to come out and say where it is happening. It is your job. Whose job is it to solve these murders? You see, what I believe is one of the biggest problems here. Careful, I'm here. That's okay. I know, I am very well aware that several officers do watch my content. I am well aware, but I don't just lambast officers of a whim. I'm speaking on something. I'm speaking on something accurately. And lose your job by speaking out. Well, speak out. You see, this is the thing I don't understand. How can I be a police officer? I am sitting in the police service where I am supposed to be solving crime. And then I'm saying I am afraid to speak out because I'll lose my job. Well, then leave the job because you're not helping the country. You're there taking our money and not helping the country. If you see something going on badly, it's your job to speak on it. Who else's job is it? You're the one that has the authority to arrest people and have a gun. You have guns. You can actually point it around and say that you shot somebody under the protection of the law. You have that ability. Who else are you expecting to do it? So if it is that, because I've heard it many times, that they are impeded by the political directorate, and I do not doubt that. I do not doubt that for one moment, because Trinidad is a very corrupt country. And from the moment you see a corrupt country, they must have a corrupt police service. It's obvious. It's obvious. If you have a corrupt country, you must have a corrupt police service. Otherwise, the police would have arrested the corrupt people. And the police service is supposed to be an independent body. So, if it is that someone is stopping you from doing your duty, come out and tell us who is doing that. Why is someone stopping you? Who is stopping you? And I wonder about these things. Murders in broad daylight. Murders and someone drives down the highway to escape. I remember when they murdered someone, and I think I spoke about this before, when they murdered someone outside of the Fete down south. A well-known guy. They murdered him and two others in a car on the on-ramp to the highway. And the murderers escaped. What? How many highways we have in Trinidad and Tobago? Endanger your life and family lives. Well, leave the police service. Leave the police service. If you're afraid of the danger to your family life from doing your job, if you're afraid of losing your job from doing your job, leave. Go be a private security somewhere else, because you are serving no purpose there. If you are covered inside the police service, then leave. You're too afraid to do your job. That's like if someone, imagine you hire someone to build your roof. You hire someone to build a roof for you. You want them to go up there, build a roof. And they come and they say, you know what? I'm afraid of heights, and I want to go home and see my daughter. So I don't want to climb up on that roof to do it. You would fire them. You would fire them. How are you telling me that you're afraid of your life and your family life to do your job? Like, I don't understand this. Let me just say I don't understand this. I do understand this. I understand being fearful for your family and your safety. I understand. But to sit in a job facilitating crime in the country, watching the crime get worse and progressively worse every year, and then come to see that it's because of fear for your family. I'm sorry, that excuse doesn't buy it for me. It doesn't buy it for me. The criminologist went on. When I look at crime statistics for Trinidad and Tobago over the years, it appears that the other typologies of crime, that the either constant or reducing it appears that the other typologies of crime are either constant or reducing. But the murders, I think when I compare the murders for the period last year as against the period up to yesterday, I think we have a higher number for this year. You think? He suggested increasing police presence, a measure the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service continues to assure is taking place. However, Dr. Wallace said he recalled back in the mid-1990s in Port of Spain, there was something known as the Midtown Patrol Branch. And on almost every corner in Port of Spain, you would see at least 2 police officers. At that point in time, Port of Spain was ranked as one of the safest capitals in the world. Now, Port of Spain is not one of the safest capitals in the world. Recently, a vendor was killed in broad daylight in Port of Spain. Where are the police officers? I certainly am not seeing them. Police officers in uniform and police officers in plain clothes, they serve a different purpose. If you want to deter criminal activities, you want to deter deviance, you really need to see the presence of uniformed police officers in our cities, Dr. Wallace stated. Over the weekend, Acting Police Commissioner MacDonald Jacob lamented that illegal guns remain a challenge for law enforcement officers. Here's the thing. With all the societal realities, all the cultural realities, etc., all of that, be it as it may, what is supposed to be in Trinidad and Tobago is that anyone thinking of murdering someone else is supposed to have in the back of their mind that I am going to be in jail after I do this crime. And reality is some people will still do it. Some people will still do it, but many more will not. But if you're doing a crime in Trinidad and Tobago, if you're committing a murder in Trinidad and Tobago, you could stand a reasonable assurance no one is going to catch me. Of the 340 murders for the year thus far, 340 known murders for the year thus far, how many of the killers were caught? If it was that after every murder, about 80% would be caught. People won't be killing people as easily. It wouldn't happen. Most killers don't go out there with a suicide mission. Most killers don't go out there wanting to go to jail or go to prison. It's not what they go out there to do. They want to survive afterward. And to me, one of the ways you could see that so easily is the way it seems like a lot of the kills, a lot of the killings have that hired hit feel to it. A lot of the killings, yes, Crimac, yes, I'm seeing my name called. A lot of the killings have that hired kill feel to it. And when you're seeing so many hired hits, what that is telling you is people are so sure they will not be caught, they could make a business out of it. I am so sure no one will catch me after I do this killing that I could offer to kill extra people. You see, if the kind of people that kill people when they know they're going to get caught are emotional murders, you're in the heat of the moment, you want to, you get vexed and whatever happens. That might happen whether you'd get caught or not. But hired kills means they're so sure they're going to get away with it, I could kill some extras. One that popped up over the weekend, love triangle blamed for Valencia man's murder. A love triangle is being blamed for the murder of a 28-year-old Valencia man who was killed while having sex by fake police on Saturday night. Police said the man of Iman Lane, Valencia was with a woman when at about 10:20 p.m., 3 men shouted, "Police, police." The man, police said, was on a mattress on the floor. This isn't funny. It's not funny, but it's unique. Bro, even if they catch them, they could still come out and do killing. Yes, they can. Well, at least show me you could catch them. Then here's what would happen then. Here's what would happen then. If the police start to catch the killers, and all the killers, after being caught, are being released by the courts, then we could change our finger from pointing at the police, and then point at the court system and saying, okay, well, all these killers are being released from the court system. If that is the case, well, the police have an easy escape there. It's not our fault. We are catching them. The courts are releasing them. And then if the courts say, well, we're doing the best, we just don't have enough resources, then they could point the finger at the parliamentarians. Yes, because bail is a constitutional right. That has nothing to do with it. That's not what I'm talking about, because they are not arresting and charging people for murder. But we had it catching known repeat offenders, and then we disbanded the unit. Now we're talking under certain circumstances. Of course, Exis says, Mordecai Daniel says, when last was there public hanging to deter criminals? Here's the thing, Mordecai Daniel. First off, to start from the top, there's no proof that that capital punishment deters killing. For one, fellas in gangs are on an iffy realm with their life on the whole. Two, in order to hang someone, you need to find them guilty. In order to find them guilty, you need to first arrest them and charge them. If we are not even arresting them and charging them, we could have in the law books that they must be burnt at the stake. We could have in the law books that, you know, when we catch murderers, we'll burn them at the stake in the middle of the promenade. That will deter the murderers. But you have to catch them first. If we do not catch them, and people are asking, how do we catch them? How do we catch them? Listen, if our police service in Trinidad and Tobago is incapable of figuring out how to catch murderers, then you all shouldn't be in the police service also. Investigations have a scientific route to run. We have cameras all about the country on all these highways. And as I said, a prominent figure was murdered right at the start of the highway. Someone got onto the highway with all those cameras lining the highway and somehow escaped in a country of 1.3 million people. Come on, let's be real. Let's be real. Is it that the police have no idea how to solve crime? If that is the case, I think the police should come out and tell us that. The police should come out and tell us that we now have no idea how to solve crime. We do not know how to start doing investigations. We have no idea what is going on with this. Fine, tell us that so we'll know that we can get rid of you all and get some people in there who think they know what to do. Because I can tell you, at least the former guy, it's not a police issue, Nathan. Well, tell me what the issue is, criminal, please, because I'd like to know, where is this issue? Because the former guy seemed to be pretty sure of himself that he knew how to solve some of these issues. And it could seem like he had better results than the current guy. At least it could seem so. You to change the mentality of a criminal, improve the environment, else the cycle will continue. Van 868, fire for that. Throw in that talk. Pelt it far away. Far away. That's not what we're talking about today. No offense meant. But the reason I say that is we're not talking about the social sense. We started off that. We started off with that. And yes, parenting is key. Yes, having fathers in the homes is key. If we could get a father in every home in Trinidad, crime well done. True, I agree. I don't disagree with anything there. However, me, Citizen Springer, me here in Central, That's not my business. That's what the police are there for. Because we know everyone isn't going to have that perfect upbringing. There are going to be criminals in the society. You need the police there to help in that situation. That's what the police are there for. So to tell me that what we need to do is solve society's ills and get fathers in homes and then crime will stop. Okay. Well, then what do we have police for? What is the purpose of police? The police are there just to collect money and run multiple households. Well, tell me what it is. It is not the police. Tell me what it is. If you're saying it's not the police, show me how it's not the police. We're looking to see murderers arrested and charged. Police coming after crime. Thank you, Kremak. You're right. You're right. Police coming after crime. So police do not stop crime. That's a fact. Generally speaking, police do not stop crime. At least not in that sense. So they can't predict who is going to do what. They can't stop crime. But here how police actually do stop crime. By creating a deterrent. As I said numerous times already for the live, if I knew that anytime I commit a murder, I am going to be caught, there's no way I can escape committing murder, the amount of people willing to take that risk will drop. I am not saying those people will disappear, but the amount of people will drop. Look at areas that have higher detection rates. It's this kind of magical coincidence. The areas that have the highest detection rates and crime solution rates have lower crime. It's very funny how when police shoot someone, that's not even what I'm talking about. Is the only solution to stopping crime police shooting them? Is that the only solution? Like, what are we talking about here? If you're telling me, I don't think the police seem to understand what they're saying. I don't think the police seem to understand what they're saying. If you're saying that you're incapable of stopping crime without shooting the people, then you're saying you're unable to do your job. Can you add persons to the live for one-on-one discourse? Yes, I can actually. And I regularly say I can. And I will if you'd like to chat. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. This guy was murdered out in the east. And they said police are working on the theory that the man, who is not originally from Valencia, was killed because of his relationship with a woman from the area. And it doesn't seem, because there were multiple people there calling police as fake police. I don't understand what your question is, Scuba TNT. What is the technicality you're looking for there? Define crime. We know what crime is. Crime is a transgression of the law. You're breaking the law, thus it's a crime. What did Kremak say? They are always seeing the police. Here's the thing, Kremak. It's a job that you chose. You know what that's like to me, Kremak? If I send my child to a school and my child keeps failing the subjects in the school, the first people I will point the finger at would be the teachers. And then when I go to the, I don't know how come, Rooney, you're the moderator. When I go to the school and I ask the teachers, why is my child feeling like this? Why are you not teaching my child? I'm looking in my child's books and I'm not seeing any work in it. The teacher could then point and tell me, well, the administration isn't providing resources for us to do X, Y, Z. But until the teachers can point to me exactly what is failing from the higher ups, the finger goes directly at you. And for you to say that you can't blame the teachers is wrong, because you can. It's their job. If a teacher isn't teaching, you blame the teacher. If the police are not policing, you blame the police. Another one. Second man dies after resident's nightclub shooting. And just by the way, for the man I can, and I just did. For the man who was speaking about race in all of this, bear in mind the guy who was shot in Valencia had an East Indian surname. So race seems to be crossing barriers with the crime these days. Second man dies after resident's nightclub shooting. Lebanese building designer, 51, died at the Port of Spain General Hospital on Sunday night after he was shot in the head early on Saturday morning. The man who police believe was the target of a hit is the second man to die after the shooting at the residence nightclub. One would replace a businessman of Pelican Road, Lanchpark, Chaguanas, and the Lebanese building designer of West Moorings were both hit in the head when a gunman shot at a group seated on the patio of the nightclub at about 2:30 a.m. on Saturday. Another man from Princeton was shot in the abdomen and is in hospital in a stable but serious condition. One was the managing director of Relate Technologies, which imports electronics, and was also the co-founder of the Blue Sky online grocery. The Lebanese building designer moved to Trinidad and Tobago about 10 years ago. Police believe he was targeted because of information they were given about his gambling habit. Crime is a result of societal shortcomings. Cremak, we spoke about. How many times do you want me to say this, Cremak? Do you want me to say it in Spanish, French, Hindi, some other language? We know what causes the base of crime. We know what causes the base of crime. We know this. But that's what the police are there for. That's what the police are there for. That is what the police are there for. For that is why the police are there. Are you not? What do you think the police are there for? Obviously, crime comes from the base of societal ills. We know this. Everyone knows this. But we also know that we cannot eradicate all societal ills. That's why we hire police. We know. It's not that people don't understand that societal ills causes police. We know. Causes crime, sorry. We know. But the police are hired to protect the people from that. From that very same thing. Are you trying to see that Trinidad society has become so corrupted and failed that the police are incapable of protecting us from crime? If that is what you're saying, I am not trivializing this. Kremak, you're speaking like you aren't in so many of my lives. 90% of my lives, when people ask me what I think is the issue, I always say cultural. I always say cultural. I don't think Trinidad is a failed society at all. I don't think that Trinidad society has degraded so much from last year to this year. You understand what I'm talking about? We're talking about 277 last year to 340 this year. Do you think that Trinidad has degraded so horribly over the last 10 years to see that doubling in murder? It's not just the society, it's the permissive nature of the policing. People are not being caught. Here's how I would have believed you. Here's how I would have believed that it was all a societal issue and the police are trying their best. Can you explain cultural shortly? I'm new on your life. Okay, cool, bad mind MC. Here's how I would have believed this. If we were seeing an issue where the police were arresting entire families and we were seeing the mother, the daughter, and her two sons arrested and are all in prison, and the police are arresting people from a side, they caught a family and they caught the mother laundering the hitman's money. Fine. They caught the mother laundering the hitman's money. Then, okay, the police sweep through and arrest a whole family here and a whole family there, and they're arresting this whole community for murder. Then I'd say, okay, it's obvious the society is failing. Look at the kind of people that the police have to arrest. But if I'm seeing that the police aren't arresting anyone, if the police aren't arresting anyone, and then you're telling me it's a failed society, How does that balance? How does that balance? It's not like the police are arresting people from a side and they're saying, look at these poor people we're arresting. It shows the society is failing. Fine, that's a good thing. But you're arresting no one. You're charging no one. Nobody's in jail. And then you're saying it's the society's fault. At least do your job first, and then you could say it's the society's fault. Let's go back to the example of the teachers, because it is false to say police aren't making arrests. There's much more to consider. Okay, Axis. Let's go back to the teaching example. Let's go back to the teaching example. Pull it away from the police. If a teacher, if you go in school and ask a teacher, why is my child failing? And they tell you your child is failing because you are not doing your job at home as a parent. That might be a very good reason for that. It might be. But then, if you pull your child's notebook and see that the teacher hasn't given any notes for the term, if you see that the teacher, you ask the students in the class and you find out that the teacher is in their air-conditioned vehicle, driving up and down the place, doing nothing, picking up their child from school in the government air-conditioned vehicle, you know, people act like we aren't Trinis and see what's going on. Like we don't have police buddies to see what they do. Like we don't know how lazy some police are. Like we don't know when we call police and they say they have no one there, no vehicle there, and we see them buying barbecue around the corner. Like we don't live in Trinidad seeing this. All right. Anyway, I digress. If we go to the class and we ask the teacher, why is my child failing? And the teacher says it's because of you at home. And then we see when we look, the teacher isn't in class. The teacher isn't teaching any work. There are no notes in the book. Then you're going to say, wait, but sir, but miss, but teacher George, how could you tell me I'm not doing my job at home if when I look, you aren't even doing yours either? This is the job that you're being paid for. If you're saying, okay, I'm doing the best I can, you're saying the teacher is, the notebook is filled to the brim. The teacher is there every time for class on time. You ask any student, they say that teacher tries their best. Miss always there. Miss always there in a then you could say, all right, well, it's probably me at home. Well, it's probably me at home. But you have to see the teacher doing their job first before you could make that statement. You are being paid to do a job. You are not the social worker. It's not your job to talk about it's only the culture. It's your job to solve crime and arrest criminals. If that is not being done, people have a right to put some blame on you. What is the message being sent when murderers getting bail? The message being sent is that someone is innocent until proven guilty. That's the message being sent. And the thing is, that murderers getting bail thing could be only an excuse for the last month. Come on, I spoke about this issue on the live. Murderers weren't getting bail last year or at the start of the year. The murderers getting bail thing only happened this year. Last month. And how many murder accused have gotten bail since then? 5? How many? So you're trying to tell me that the 340 murders that we had this year are because the Privy Council ruled that you cannot deny bail for everyone accused of murder? No. Let's be reasonable here. No. Excess. In 2010, 10,000 prosecutions were instituted. Of that 10,000, only 1,286 were convicted. I don't think detection is the issue here. Yes, we do. We do have statistics on conviction rates. I don't have it in front of me actually, but we do have those statistics and the rates are low. The rates are very low. If what you're saying is true, excess, that of the 10,000 in 2010, 1,286 were convicted. What do you think is the reason for that? 2020, sorry, 2020. What do you think is the reason for that? What do you think? Nathan, let's say the police do detect an arrest. How quickly will justice be served? Now, that's another question. And I agree with that. I agree. That's what I said at the beginning. I am saying we have to follow the trail of blame. We have to follow the trail of blame. If the police are arresting and charging people for murder when they commit it, and then the police are saying that it's the courts unable to prosecute them, then the police need to say that. The police need to say that. It is not about blame, it is what it is. It is about blame because it's someone's job. Anytime it's someone's job, it is about blame. That's the point. If you have a job and the area your job is in is failing, do you expect there to be no blame? Like, really? That's the expectation? If when you don't get water, Crimac, and you blame WASA? When you don't get internet, and you blame whoever is your internet service provider? Like, I don't understand why police somehow feel like they would be above that blame. And I'm not saying by any means that the police job is easy. I know it isn't. It's next to impossible in some cases. I think then the police need to come out to say why their job is being made impossible. What are the areas making their job impossible? Please come out with your commissioner, the not so well-spoken guy. Come out and tell us, well, the police are arresting all of these murderers, are charging them, and when we send them to the courts are freeing them. Please tell us this. Please. I can assure you, if that commissioner position was more like a sheriff position, if it was more like a sheriff position where we voted for that man and we could have voted him out instead of this batch nonsense where he's a friend of all the other fellow police officers, if that man was voted for and he was answerable to the public, I could bet you he was going to start to say where the issue was. People know who does the crime in their neighborhood. Yes, people do. And people include police. And people include police. I always say this. Police live in the same neighborhoods. Good night, Big JT from New Jersey down over on the Instagram there. Police live in the same neighborhoods. I know that. You are getting emotional. Now, normally you're in control. No, I'm not actually emotional in that sense. The thing is, I don't think it makes sense that the police attempt to exonerate themselves from blame. What do you think about Nancy Pelosi? Wow. Speaker Pelosi 6. That's out of left field what I think about Nancy Pelosi. I think she may be one of the most corrupted people in the world. Just by the way. What batch has to do with Commissioner of Police selection process? Crimac, I've spoken on that before. Yes, people includes police, even police. Oh my God, do we have narcissists and gaslighters on the live? Do you have a daily schedule about topics that be discussed, or is it made by the day? It's made by the day. We wing it by the day. What the batch has to do with Crimac is the friend-friend policy. The friend-friend policy where, yes, her stock's trading. Yes. Well, more specifically, her husband's stock trading and her son's dealings. But let's not distract ourselves with American politics. The batch has to do with the friend-friend business, where we know, it's widely known that corruption is a serious problem inside of the police service. But the PSC do the selection. They do the selection from other police officers. What I'm saying, I'm not talking about who is selected by the PSC. I'm talking about who they select from. I do not believe that we need a police commissioner from the police service. I remember back in 2010 when, what was the doctor's name? He still speaks some random rocker stuff sometime. UNC guy, well, he's not, well, he is UNC, but he was against Kamala recently. What's his name again? I always forget that guy's name every now and again. But when he was appointed as the health minister, I remember several people came out to say that the health minister should not be appointed from a doctor. That was their saying, because the health minister, once he's appointed from the ranks of the doctors, would have friends that he would favor inside of there. I think the commissioner should be something of a managerial portfolio. Someone who manages this as nearly Fuad Khan. Thank you. Fuad Khan is who I was speaking about. As someone who is nearly an outsider with nearly no loyalties to people inside there. So people could be fired much easier. For one, it's very difficult to fire police. We know this. They're just relocated. Police accused of beating their wives. I'm speaking of things I know to be factual. Accused of beating their wives. The wife went and made the report. He's beating me. He gets a suspension for a little while. They relocate him somewhere, pay him for his entire suspension, and he's back on the force to terrorize his wife. We know this. It's like the end of the last live where some guy was asking about Wasson. What that have to do with crime? Kremak, I thank you, Kremak. Thank you very much. You've just showed the entire chat there, the problem with the police there. You've just showed it. Kremak asks, what does a police abusing his wife and getting away with it have to do with crime? Thank you, Kremak. Thank you. We're seeing it there. And this is the attitude why the police keep faltering at that. When the big strong one on the TV program is called, all of that is crime. So wait, Kremak, do you think beating your wife is not crime? Do you consider domestic abuse to not be crime? And that example is to show how the police treat other police involved in criminality. When the strong guy on his TV program gets a call and someone is explaining to him exactly how the police are doing something erroneous in their area and why it is causing more crime, he would always find some gymnastic flip backward to turn it back around to be like, the police are actually the correct one in this situation and you all are wrong. It's called gaslighting. And if you wonder what that has to do with murders, it has to do with crime. If police do not hold other police accountable for criminal actions, how am I being disingenuous, Kremak? How am I being disingenuous here? If police do not hold police accountable for criminality, do you think they would do it when it comes to murders? Like, how is that being disingenuous? I am legitimately confused about this. Do you think that murders and domestic violence have no link? Because we are speaking about murders. Yes, we are still speaking about murders here. And murders are linked to police inability to stop crime. And police inability to stop crime is linked to the police being very gangish and not being willing to rat out each other in their own wrongdoing. And because of that, the police service is compromised. So they find it very difficult to actually solve crimes. One of all the institution, police are held accountable the most. Plenty of them murders done. I disagree with that, Kremak. Because I just showed you. I could assure you. If a teacher beats his wife and they report it to the police will arrest that man. generally speaking. If a police beats his wife and they report it to the police, he is suspended, given a time, take a little time to blow off na hurry, then given his back pay and relocated. It have a whole wing in jail full of rogue police. All right, let's dive into some more of the crime, some more of the issues. A man gunned down in Oropouche trying to retrieve his car. 2 shot dead by fake law enforcement officers. 2 men were shot dead by gunmen pretending to be police on Saturday night. In the first incident, a 41-year-old man was shot by men wearing tactical uniforms while liming with a group of friends in Chinapoo Gardens, Morva. The gunmen reportedly accosted Gamal Waldron and his friends, ordering them to lie on the ground and produce their identification cards. When Waldron handed his ID card to the men, however, he was shot multiple times and died at the scene. Police found 35 spent shells at the scene, with 10 bearing the markings of the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment. This again is the scariness of the crime that we have. This again is the scariness of the crime that we have. When you look at a crime like that, it seems quite obvious. These are hits. These are hits. These men didn't even know the man they went to shoot. They went there and told them, produce your ID card. And when the man produced his ID card, 35 shots. They for sure wanted that man dead. And the TT regiment shells there. What's that? What's that? So the inability to dismantle criminal gangs at its core is the catalyst for most violent crimes. I agree with that. Criminal gangs in Trinidad and Tobago are the catalyst for most crime. Who are involved in organized crime, Nathan? I don't know. I don't understand the question. What do you mean who? I would have produced big guns and blaze them. What do you mean who? As in trainees? As in officers? As in regiment men? I don't understand exactly what you mean. Nathan, what you think about the list of mysterious deaths? Boy, why are you trying to draw me into American politics right now? Why? The Clinton death list. I know about it. And 10 shells from by regiment, so hits by regiment members or regiment selling ammo. It could be stolen. It's not impossible. It could be stolen. It doesn't have to be that they sold it. It doesn't have to be that they did the hit. But the fact that their shells were found there, it goes both to criminals and public servants. There's a nexus between gangs and public servants. All right. I remember, I don't know how many of you were in the live when I went through the issue of the firearms department in Trinidad and Tobago, the police service firearms department. And they did an investigation into it. Really and truly, the investigation, to be quite honest, seemed more like a targeted hit at the former commissioner. That was the intention for the most part. They slipped the entire investigation out to the media. When you read that investigation, you get the understanding that there seems to be complicated, well-oiled, very well-oiled criminal enterprises running within the police service. And I do not believe that well-oiled criminal enterprises can be running inside of the police service without many other officers knowing. In that investigation, there were high-ranking officers named, several of them. how many of them do you think are still on duty as active police officers in Trinidad and Tobago? Correct, officials, correct. 1868, they didn't name them in the newspaper article, and I am not going to jump out of my body and call anyone's name like that. They didn't name them in the article, but in the article they noted that the investigation, the report, El Chapo, bye. In the report, it noted that the men were named. Police is the reason for crime, Nathan. I'm not even sure if you're being sarcastic there, Kermack. I'm not even sure if you're being sarcastic. Officers may know, but fearful for their life and family lives, they stay quiet. That's what someone said at the very beginning. They're fearful for their lives. They're fearful for their lives. When you have the setup, for criminality coming from the police service, do you think gross neglect is the cause for certain communities in producing criminal elements? Clearly, you want this to be one-sided. No, I don't. You see, Kermack, I'm getting that sidetrack here. Kermack, you don't listen enough of the lives. This live, we're going at the police. What proof I have to say that? But Kermack, Kermack, what are you talking about, sir? I am literally talking about a report done where they named the officers, involved in a ring where money was being spent for guns to circulate. They named the officers, and none of them were even fired. None. And why I say you miss too many of the lives, because just last week, this is a good point. This is a good point for me to plug the YouTube channel. Go over to YouTube and look for Nathan Springer over there, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that like button if you're over on YouTube right now, and you would be able to see all of the other lives. You'd be able to see them listed there, and you can go catch them all. So previously, I spoke about gang culture. In Trinidad and Tobago. And I spoke about gang culture developing out of the culture of Trinidad and Tobago and the fatherlessness and the young men with nothing to do with their lives. And we went in for quite some time. And there's a community, there's a culture that glorifies this, so some people see that as the route out. These young men are looking for a hierarchy to go. They're looking for a game to play. They want a game to play to end up at the top of. And the game they're getting to play is that gang game. It's nonsense, it's foolish, and some communities glorify that culture and push it further. But that's not what we're dealing about tonight. We're dealing with the police. And there was a report that came out that outlined this action by the police. So when you see things like this, with regiment shells being found, you could surmise that it is very possible high-ranking officials inside of even the regiment may be involved in some of this. Because reports have been done, as I said, that named the high-ranking officers involved in these crimes. Here's another one. Let's see if we could find that. 2 cops charged with misbehavior. A police constable was granted bail with surety in the sum of 500,000 by a justice of the peace, while a woman police constable is expected to appear before a Port of Spain magistrate today after they were both charged with several offences, including misbehavior in public office. The 2 constable names are named there. Last attached to the Port of Spain division were charged with the offences following advice received from the Director of Public Prosecutions, Roger Gaspard. The two are jointly charged with corruptly receiving an illegal firearm, corruptly receiving 15 rounds of ammunition, corruptly soliciting the sum of $30,000, and corruptly receiving the sum of $30,000. The PC with 1 count of money laundering and the WPC with 2 counts of money laundering. The PC appeared before J.P. Abraham on Sunday and was granted bail and ordered to appear before the Port of Spain Magistrates Court on September 13th. The WPC will appear in court today. A male victim reported to police that on August 8th, he was at his Port of Spain workplace when a female officer and 2 male officers in uniform entered and conducted a search. The officers allegedly found an illegal pistol loaded with a magazine containing 15 rounds of ammunition in the man's possession. He claims one of the male officers took possession of the firearm and then allegedly demanded the sum of $30,000 from him to forego charging him. The victim, who became fearful for his life, handed over the sum of to the officer on that same date. The male officer handed the firearm and sum of money over to the female officer. A report was made to the Professional Standards Bureau about the incident on that same date, and an investigation was launched. How symptomatic of the police do you think that is? How symptomatic of the police do you think that is? Listen to that story. Listen to that story. They went to the man's place, found the gun, were bold enough to demand $30,000 from him on sight and just take it and leave. Innocent until proven guilty. But in a situation like that, watching how that entire thing, or you missed a little of the story. Okay, let me read this story. A male victim reported to police that on August 8th, he was at his Port of Spain workplace when a female officer and 2 male officers in uniform entered and conducted a search. The officers allegedly found an illegal pistol loaded with a magazine containing 15 rounds of ammunition in the man's possession. He claims one of the male officers took possession of the firearm and then allegedly demanded the sum of $30,000 from him to forego charging him. The victim, who became fearful for his life, handed over the sum to the officer on that same date. The male officer handed the firearm and sum of money over to the female officer. Looking at the framing of that story, does that seem, if we had to guess, we're guessing here, if we had to guess, would you guess that that was the first time they did something like that? The kind of finesse and confidence that was allegedly carried out there. Would you guess that was the first time? And interestingly in this, the PC and the WPC were both charged, but there was another PC there because 3 officers went in and searched. I wonder, how were they able to obtain a warrant for a search at the job? I don't know. They didn't have it in this story. I don't know. I guess during the investigation, they would find out. Maybe they didn't have a warrant. I do not know. Maybe they got a legitimate warrant too because the man had the weapon there. Let that be known. The man had allegedly had an illegal firearm there. The other police constable that was there, do you think he knew nothing about the shakedown that went on? Marlon Beckel says he snitched. If you're talking about the other police that was there, he wasn't the one who snitched. It was the guy who was shut down was the one who snitched. Do you think the other police constable, when he had to write up his report, because I'm supposing all three of them would have to write up a report about this incident, what do you think he said about it in his report? We have that case. We have the killing of the fellow police officer in Diego Martin when they tried to kill a man. They tried to kill an unarmed man. They tried to kill an unarmed man, ended up killing their fellow police officer, and then attempted to blame the unarmed man for killing their fellow police officer, mounting a search to find the unarmed man. We have that case. I don't know how many of you could remember that. Just a small incident. Then there was a case 2 weeks ago where a couple was found in relations upstairs the parking lot in Price Plaza, Shogunas. Upstairs the parking lot, a couple was found. The couple, I believe, were both male, and when the police found them, they took $2,500 up front and they demanded $2,500 later. The men got smart and set up a sting operation, so when the police came back for the other half of their money, they got arrested. That was 2 weeks ago. They attempted to shake down someone else. 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago. Two weeks. What's that? And you wonder why people will blame the police. Now you would wonder why you didn't know that these stories were here. These stories are here. And the aggravation that citizens get is when we attempt to raise these issues and point out to the police that a lot of the crime is because the police are being corrupt. When people try to point that out, all the police rush in to say, no, 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 it's the society. No, 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 it's the court. No, 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 it's the bail. But what is this? I like this though. It seems like more and more citizens aren't taking the shakedown as readily anymore. The citizens aren't taking the shakedown as readily anymore. The citizens are setting up the police, and I love it. I think every citizen should do that. When the police attempt to shake you down, we're living in a different time. Set them up and get them charged. Have them spend some time in jail. That's what you should do. Because very often we find if you don't set them up to get things very direct, you could go and speak to the police there, and someone might say, okay, we'll see about it, and lose the report. You'll remember, I know when he was here in that other life, you remember the lawyer who carried a flash drive full of evidence with other police in the group chats, sharing pornographic material. And the inspector in the police station, said he lost the flash drive. And then when she contacted a woman police constable in the same station, the woman police constable, who is not the inspector for the station, was somehow magically able to find it back. You'll remember that story from last week? Or am I being delusional again? And these are the problems. And I think I think the police need to fix themselves. The police need to fix themselves. If the police continue in the direction that they're continuing now, we're going to see the criminality increase. Because what is happening is people know that the police are so compromised that by and large we aren't going to be caught. By and large we aren't going to be caught. And it upsets me when police act like the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago don't know these things. Like we don't live in Trinidad and Tobago. Like when I was younger, like I wasn't privy to hearing a police officer telling the guys on the block who it was made the call to come and tell them. Like we don't know these things happen. And then they will say, yes, the neighbors have to give information. But then I know personally that the police give that information back to the guys. How is crime going to stop? How is crime going to stop? And if every time when it is brought up, the police are quick to throw up the blue shields and block and say, it's society, it's culture, it's the courts. Come on. No, it's not. No, it's not. If the police were to do their job, then we could move on to the next one. You could say, okay, we as the police are doing our job, we are cleaning up. If I see a corrupt police around me, I am reporting him to the Police Standards Bureau. How is it that citizens are brave enough to report the police to the Police Standards Bureau, but fellow police aren't? And you have a gun. What happened to customs? What happened to licensing? What happened to the politicians? What happened to the courts? But you saying things I always say. I regularly say that. When they were talking about cleaning up, what was the one they were talking about cleaning up recently? One of the institutions they were talking about, they're trying to revolutionize. I said the first one to revolutionize is licensing. I always say that. Anyone in enough of these lives know. Anyone in enough of these lives know. I always talk about licensing. When you go to licensing, pull out your phone and record them if they ask you for money. I always say that. Set them up too. Licensing may just be one of the most corrupt areas in the country. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Licensing may cause many accidents on the road. Licensing may cause unqualified people to reach on the road. But licensing isn't in charge of catching murderers. And right now, as you pointed out, Carmack, we started speaking about murders. Can't fix police without courts. I won't fully agree with that axis. I understand what you're saying, but I wouldn't fully agree with that. I will say the police cannot stop crime without the courts. I wouldn't say I can't fix police without the courts. I think the police are a self-governing body. That's what they're supposed to be. And they're supposed to be able to govern themselves as such that they can fix themselves enough that they could throw the entire issue on the courts. That's what I'm asking the police to do. Yes, we know the courts are lacking. So what I want you police to do is make sure no one can blame the police. Throw all of it on the courts. Throw it on the courts. Let people see the courts taking the bribes. That's what we want. Let's stop seeing the police officers taking the bribes. Let's stop seeing the police officer who's abusing his wife be only relocated. Let's stop seeing the police officers taking up for their friends when they know they are corrupt. Let's stop seeing the automatic trigger reaction of police to defend each other instead of point out the corruption in each other. And that's why people call the police a gang. That's why people continuously call the police another gang, because they operate on that kind of gang frequency where it's always free my homie, free my batch. It's always that. The protection seems to be triggered and automatic. That's not what it is supposed to be. If you are there to enforce the law, you are there to enforce the law even if your fellow law enforcement officer breaks it. And you aren't there to defend him as being a fellow police. You are there to enforce the law. Stop defending folly. Stop continuously redirecting and admit that the police service has many problems, and a lot of it has to do with corruption. My thing is that for this change to occur, we need an injection of a new culture in the police service. I agree. I regularly talk about that also, roly-poly. That's another point I make. The culture of the police. That's what I was talking about previously, Crimac, with the batch talk. When I say the batch thing, what I mean is that friend gang style behavior. It's like, you know, in those gangs where they talk about free my homie Lil this. And when you read the crimes that Lil this committed, it's like murder, rape, pillaging. And you're like, what do you mean free him? That guy is a horrible guy. You're not supposed to be wanting him free. No. But the police act very similar to that so often. They're so quick to defend everything out of the police service, acting like they themselves don't know how corrupt the service is. And that's the part that rubs so many people the wrong way. We also need progressive leadership, increased transparency and accountability. 100 on that. Listen, I don't want to be insulting. I don't want to be insulting because I don't know these people personally. But the current commissioner reminds me of a previous commissioner a while back. They have that same kind of, I'm trying to find a diplomatic way to say what I want to say here. They have that same kind of way that seems like they're not too competent. It has that feeling. I don't like that at the head of our police service. We fail to realize that these institutions are products of our society, so we also need to change. Agreed 100% SM resources. Agreed 100%. Our society needs to change. I always say that. That's the thing. And that's why that's what I was telling Crimac at the beginning. If you watch enough of my content, you'd recognize that 99% of my content is speaking about that, speaking about the fact that as regular people, we are members of the society and we need to change in order for that to change. I said this before. Many people speak about corruption in the wider society and they will willingly go and pay a bribe at the licensing office. How many of you are here knowing you paid a bribe at licensing office? You don't have to admit it in the chat. You don't have to admit it. You don't. But how many of you don't have to admit it in the chat, but we know how many of you are here knowing you paid that bribe and then complain about corruption in the country. You're feeding into the corruption too. And I say that quite regularly. How many trainees you hear regularly and will willingly say, but I will do that and I will do that, and then surprised when the politicians do the same. I did a video on WASA. And I spoke about it. If WASA has 500 and something, Rooney, sure you had to, sure. If I did a video on WASA, if there were 500 and change managers over at WASA, and they know that I didn't pay anything, but I wanted to get my heavy. And they know that they're collecting money over at WASA doing no job. They know that. They're aware that the money they're collecting is for nothing. They can't complain about the politicians being corrupt and stealing the citizens' money because they're doing the same thing. You're willing to do the same thing. If you're willing to go accept taxpayers' money while giving no service in return, and you're willing to pull a string to get a job that you don't deserve, well, you're just as much a part of the problem. I regularly say all of that. In part, but it's societal change as well. Police actors act on police when the society demands them to. We need to hold them more accountable. I agree. That's what I'm attempting to do here. That is You're talking about societal change. Well, this is what I'm attempting to do here. This is what we're talking about. I I remember saying a while ago, I did a video and we were speaking about the fact that laws are enforced culturally. Yes, I know that one. I know that one. When people went to get the Ford with the heavy tea, they just link up there and the person tell them, don't worry, don't worry. I go fix that for you. And they knew that. I know that. I know that. Corruption. Corruption. We are society. So, yes, we are the ones that are supposed to be making that change. Where was I? Where was I? A video I made previously. I forgot. But I agree. As I was saying, it is society. We are the members of society. We are the people that are supposed to be changing society. If we find society isn't the way it is, it's because of all of us, including the police officers. And the problem that many people have is many people like to point at society on the outside, never pointing on the inside. And that's the problem I'm seeing with the police service also. The police service has to be willing to point inside more often. Be willing and open to point inside and see that it's, you see, you hold a unique position. Thank you very much, J. Chris. Yes, we're improving out here, sir. We're improving. You hold a significant position. You hold a position of power. So if you are corrupt, it's going to be even worse than just a regular member of society. You know, the whole Uncle Ben and Spider-Man business. With great power comes great responsibility. All right. All right. That's all I have for now, you know, folks. Are there any questions or comments before we take an exit for tonight? And police, I love you all, police. If you all see me out there and my tires look a little smooth, just give me a blight. Kidding. But I'm not saying that we don't need police. I'm not saying that all police are bad or anything like that. So nothing even close to that. I'm saying that police hold a unique position. They hold a unique position of power that a unique position of power that has more responsibility. So if you find yourself lapsing, more open-ended outside of the shot, it's a bit limited. If you find yourself lapsing more than the average citizen, the consequences will be greater. It's just the reality of it. Thank you, Minister. Minister of Engineering. We'll call you Minister of Engineering, right? You're the Minister of Engineering. Everywhere, the police and protective services are like a mafia everywhere, worldwide, and they are controlled by the wow. I won't go that far. All right. I hope you guys were educated, entertained, or informed. Next time, bring on police subject matter experts. Okay. I said you could jump in the live and Nathan talk about the meetup. Oh, great, great, great. Attack from all sides. Yes, there's a meetup planned for January. August 28th. My mind is far. For August the 28th of August. You could check in my bio right here on TikTok. There's a link to a Discord server where we'd be planning that meetup. The locations are still tentative. The locations are still yet tentative. So if you'd like to be there and we could meet up and talk in real, and the police could argue me down in real if you'd so like, I don't mind speaking. I don't mind speaking. So we could have that meetup in real. Hit that Discord link over there on my meetup on the Betham. I don't mind, you know. If somebody from the Betham were to invite me to a meetup on the Betham, I'll go. I've been to the Betham before, you know. I've played music in the Beetham. I've played music in Sealots. I've been to those places. Like, I'm not, I'm not afraid of going to the Beetham by and large. I mean, you have to be careful going into other people places, but it's not a fearful thing by and large. But that's not the location of the meetup. That's not the location of the meetup. Hit that Discord link in my bio. It's right there in my bio over here on TikTok. Hit that link, join the Discord server, and we could discuss and, plan the meetup if you are so interested in doing that. Red woman again. Wait. What red woman again did? I don't know. Let me stay out of that. All right, folks. That's all for now. I'll be here again tomorrow night for the next Mindful Live, starting at either 9 or 9:15 thereabouts. And I hope you will be there to join me. We always have these discussions. It's fun. And officers, it's not always about beating up on police. Tonight was just police night to have a little discussion. Peace, folks. Peace. Good night. Hold it down.